This episode of the Deep Thinkers podcast is brought to you by Crandall Pest Control. Crandall Pest Control is a family business that was founded in 2002. They have over 36 years combined experience on their team. They specialize in scorpions and termites. They do a lot of general pest. They do bee removal, rodents, and weed control. So if you have some weeds popping up in your lawn when your pest control guy comes by, he can get those for you. What makes them unique is their 7-step service plan. When they show up, you have a problem with pests. They have the solution, but they don't know what the problem is until they get there. So they listen to the problem, evaluate what needs to be done, and then go from there. Then they knock down all your spider webs so that your house looks nice. It doesn't look like you have pests every time. That's usually a good indicator if if you have bugs, if you have spider webs, because those spiders are living there, they're hanging out, they're making homes, and they need something to eat. They dust the block walls and cracks and crevices. This helps with general pest control, or this helps with pest control in general, but it also helps with scorpions. A lot of people will try to use diatomaceous earth when they do this themselves. That is fine. It's just that the moment it gets wet, it's rendered useless. So, and that can be as little moisture as your morning dew. So they have a dust that's specific for scorpions and also one that's for general pest, and they kind of go at your cracks in your walls and the little crevices in your home and things like that. Um, they dust the entry points of your home. Now, amateurs will just dump pest control or insecticide in mass around their home. You'll see trails around the house in a lot of cases, where pest control professionals know where bugs are going to go, and so they put as little uh, insecticide as they can, with it still being enough to be effective. So they know how to apply it and where to apply it, so it does the best job. They spray the fence line and the walkways. They do the perimeter of your home, and then they'll granulate problem areas. So if you have a section of your property that's got a lot of ants or a lot of roaches, then they can drop some granules there to kind of take care of it. So if you call Crandall Pest Control, you can reach out at crandallpestcontrol.com. When you speak with them, mention the Deep Thinkers podcast, and you will get $30 off your first general pest or scorpion treatment. Again, mention the Deep Thinkers podcast, and they'll go ahead and drop your bill down $30 for that first time. Thank you very much, Planet Earth. This episode of the Deep Thinkers podcast is brought to you by Bright Island Outreach. Bright Island Outreach is a group of individuals, many of them dentists or dental professionals, that go down into the Dominican Republic multiple times a year. They are networked with local dental schools down there, and so they take dental students that are from the DR or going to school in the DR, and they take mobile dental units and go into these impoverished areas to provide pro bono work for the good people there who otherwise wouldn't have access to good dental care. They start with education, and they teach them about oral hygiene. They also do fillings, extractions, root canals, and cosmetics. So they do a nice wide variety of procedures to take care of the people down there. Like I said, they go down there multiple times a year, so it's not like they're just showing up and providing a service one time and then disappearing into the wind. They take care of these people down there, and they make sure that they get the repeated dental work that they need. 100% of all the donations given to Bright Island Outreach goes to the cause. So the people that are working for it don't make any money off this. They just get out of it what they put into it, and it always makes you feel good to serve people and help other people, particularly when those people can't help themselves. So if you're looking for a charity to donate to, this is a great cause. All your money that you give will go to the cause. And if you want to get involved a little further, if you have an adventurous spirit and you want to go down to the Dominican Republic with this group, they also let you do that. Dr. Eric has been doing this since he was a child. His dad is a dentist, and so his family would often do these trips, so he's well versed in experiences like these. So check them out at brightislandoutreach.org. All right, we should be recording now. Can you hear it coming through the mic?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, Planet Earth. I am sitting here today with Kyle Reedy, Esquire. Kyle is a criminal defense attorney here in Arizona. He's also a professional cyclist. Kyle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
What's up, Jesse?
What's up, brother?
Professional is it's kind of loosely.
Do I give you a little more credit there than?
Yeah, I'm okay taking credit where it's not deserved, but I don't want to mislead anybody. But I mean, there are categories in cycling.
Yeah.
And so if I were to race locally, or when I race locally, racing against pros, so my license reflects that category. But obviously, I'm not here to talk about my pro cycling career because
sounds like you're professional to me.
Because it's not a career, and so it's definitely a hobby, and some would say it's a lot more than a hobby. But I am a cyclist.
Yeah.
But I'm also a defense attorney, and which is probably the least interesting thing about me, but one of the things that most people like to know the most about.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me.
Full disclosure here, Kyle is my defense attorney. I'm not going to go into the details. You can probably find it on Google. Just saying.
He does not have any pending cases.
That is true. Also, I've been a good boy for a couple years now.
A while, yeah.
So yeah.
A while.
So, but yeah, Kyle, where did you go to school? Like, let's backtrack a little first. What first got you interested in law?
Going back even a little bit farther than that, growing up, we didn't really talk about college in my house.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we knew. People went to college. We knew there were lawyers. We knew there were doctors. We really didn't know how you became those things. So while they didn't teach us about formal education, they taught us about hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, after graduating from high school, and I married my high school sweetheart.
Yeah,
high school sweetheart. Her family they're academic. They always taught them, you go to school, you pay for it now or you pay for it later. And so I realized that, I guess, you got to go to school. And so I went to ASU undergrad and studied business, whatever that means. But I was a business management major. I learned Russian, and so I also studied Russian when I was there.
I know a few Russian swear words, nothing impressive. Yeah, so.
We'll see. And it's funny, when I was asking for my wife's hand, asking her father for her hand, he asked me if I had any plans for grad school. And at the time, I didn't even know what grad school meant.
Yeah, I got crazy plans, man.
Yeah, I'm going to do this and that. So I didn't even think about law school at that point, even in undergrad. And then in one of my, it was probably a second year class, it was a law class. It was one of the most interesting classes that I had, and I think part of that is because of the teacher, a local attorney, Mark Bradshaw.
Cool.
Props to him. And so I was sitting there and I'm thinking, why don't I just become a lawyer? I always wanted to work a job that I could dress nice. I grew up working construction. I knew I didn't want to work outside. And I'm a skater, so I hate cops. So I said, you know what? I'm going to be a lawyer. And
That's
so
cool.
From there, I just blasted through my undergrad and then went to University of Denver Law School,
Nice.
First and second years. And then transferred back to ASU for my third year because, we're from here, our roots are here. I knew I wanted to practice here, so I thought if I was going to start my career, I needed to be back home. So that's why we moved back to Arizona, finished
Cool.
up at ASU.
Right on, man. It's funny that you mentioned being a skater because, we'll take a picture later that I can post because you look on point, man. Like, you look great. The first time I met you was at a party. Remember that? It was at AMC Fountains in 9th grade. It was right before you came to Keno.
I do remember that.
And
I think I almost got beat up there.
Yeah, the kids that Kyle and I didn't do any of this. We weren't involved. We were talking to girls, but there's a lot of guys at that party that just trashed the clubhouse, and it ended up being a little bit notorious from then on out, that exact party. But yeah, Kyle had the low hat, the baggy pants, the Adidas shoes. I don't even think they were making skate shoes back then, man. I mean, they probably had S and Etnies, and that was probably it. But
what's funny? They didn't, and actually they just had Airwalks
Airwalks.
They had some cheesy skate shoes, and my daughter's getting ready to go to school, and one of the school pairs of shoes she wanted was some shell toes.
Nice.
So I told her, I said, look, back in the day, this is what we used to skate in. You had Adidas, you had Pumas, some Nikes,
and
but
some Chucks,
none of
maybe.
them worked.
Yeah,
maybe some Chucks, but it wasn't until a little bit later. And then you could identify somebody. You could look at their shoes; they were scuffed up. They were skaters. Or
when I worked at Industrial, that was one of the things that they did for the hiring. I was in the warehouse, so I didn't have to walk the walk. I could talk the talk and be just fine. But when they were hiring people for the stores, looked at their shoes.
But then it was even easier when they had all the skate shoes, because if somebody was wearing skate shoes, they were a skater. And then it wasn't until probably 99, probably 2000, when just everybody started wearing skate shoes.
Yeah.
So now I think there's still some subtleties where you can look at somebody and figure out whether or not they skate or they're a poser. But
true. Yeah, and a lot of it's the jargon. Like people can talk about, like for someone like me who worked for Industrial for so long, had skaters that were roommates and stuff like that, hung out with the crowd, skated a little bit back in the day, but not enough to where, like I was pretty much a poser.
You were the kid that was you're running your board along the curb to make it look like it was scratched.
Yeah. I was too fat to skate, man. I was I was a weightlifter, like I was a tank.
It is one of those sports where every professional has always been really fit.
Lean.
Yeah, really lean.
Well, if you think about it, you're essentially just pushing your weight across a board with wheels all day.
And it's gravity, because to get up to all of it, you got to be light.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's exercise, and my friends would tell me that when I was younger. You skated more, bro, you'd lose that weight. And I'd be like, dude, I cannot push this frame around on a skateboard all damn day.
Well, so, I love skating. I love the skate culture. I am a cyclist, but more than anything, I really think my roots are in skateboarding.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
And that's why I sound kind of like, when I'm talking to people on the phone doing consultations, they'll ask me how old I am. I'm like, look, I know I sound like a 13-year-old stoner, but...
That's funny.
Yeah.
I was asking our mutual buddy Aaron about that. I'm like, Kyle is so chill. And he was like, you would be too if you rode 20 miles every morning. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fair enough,
Yeah, I make sure, people that have seen me in the courtroom, see me doing trials, doing hearings, something that's adversarial, they're always a little bit caught off guard that I don't take on a different persona, but, I get more excited. I'm not quite as laid back as I am.
You own that courtroom when you're there. It's your courtroom. I've seen you in action there, and
yeah, you try to. That's the point.
Yeah, like when you were working on my case, whatever it may have been, you just kind of walked up there and like everybody else was just there, but it was your office, and I was like, yeah, this is what I need,
Yeah, well, so, it's fun. That's why I do criminal defense. I started out not doing criminal defense. I started out at the prosecutor's office.
Right on.
And that was cool how that worked out. When I was going to ASU, they have a clinic that lets you practice law as a law student. And so I was placed with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. So I was able to do trials even as a law student.
Nice.
And I think I had some experience with public speaking, and so I just felt comfortable in front of a jury doing a trial. And then they recruited me to, that was my first job out of law school. So I've been on both sides, and even though, I joke about not liking cops, at the end of the day, there's most cops are good.
Yeah, mostly good cops out there.
They serve a purpose. I don't hate them, and so, but I was on the same team as them as a prosecutor.
Right.
And I respected that. I did my job, but I definitely like what I do now a lot more.
Yeah, my first time in court ever had to have been hilarious for my attorney, for the prosecutor, for the judge. Everyone was smiling at me. Like, my attorney's like, okay, the judge said approach. So I, in my mind, started walking right up to the judge. As I walk past my attorney, he puts his hand on my shoulder, kind of backs me up to stand next to him. So that was like the first faux pas. The second one, she asked what I thought was me a question, and I went to answer. He's like, she's talking to me.
Yeah, I could see you and your personality wanting to be the spokesman.
Yeah, no, and then she actually did ask me a question. I was waiting for him, and he's like, she's actually asking you this question now. So I was all over the place.
Well, right before we moved up to Denver to go to law school, I got a criminal speeding ticket, and was totally guilty.
Yeah.
But I thought I had a decent defense, and so I drove up to Flagstaff, and part of it was so I could ride my bike up Snowball.
There you
But
go.
I thought I could fit these in there, and so I showed up, and to the prosecutor's credit, they let me hearsay in a bunch of stuff, you know, and I totally got my ass handed to me, and I lost. But so at least I can be realistic when somebody's
Yeah.
telling me, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do." I'm like, "Yeah, you can do that. You're going to lose." But there are rules, and that's why, I mean, at this point I've done, you know, over 100 trials.
Wow.
Not every one of them is a jury trial, but, you know, in every trial there's something happens, you know, whether the prosecutor's dropping the ball, whether an officer is making something up as he's testifying that you can then contradict with his police report. I mean, little things, you know. And in every single case, as long as I have something I can hang my hat on, you know, if there's some reasonable doubt there, then, you know, I'm confident that it's worth going to trial on. And in practice, whether it's in doing consultations with clients, dealing with prosecutors, or doing a trial, or in life, one of my biggest fears is that somebody's going to think that I'm not sincere. You know, sincerity is really, I think, the best quality that you can have. You can't talk to anybody on the street if you don't think that they're being sincere.
Right.
And so I think that's what makes an attorney the most effective, is that you're coming across as being sincere, and I can do that in a case if I can at least hang my hat on one thing.
Right. That's a good point. It's something that is probably overlooked in the beginning, but something that, now that you mention it, sounds very important, you know, the level of sincerity that attorney has, because you're putting a whole lot of trust in that person, and that attorney is what's standing, a lot of times is what's standing between you and Johnny Law. And if that person's not sincere, or not sincerely researching this case, and not coming prepared to court, it's going to cost you. You know?
And that's what people, you know, need to realize at first, is that people are always like, well, why don't we just tell the judge this? Why don't we just tell the judge that? And it's like, you know what? The person who has all of the cards is the prosecutor. And so the prosecutor is our, you know, that's our first point of contact in every case. They're the ones that are going to most likely decide your fate. They can decide to dismiss your case. They can decide to not offer you a plea. They can decide to offer you an awesome plea that is going to really affect the rest of your life in a way that you thought it was ruined. And so being sincere with them, you know, and having the credibility and building up that rapport and having just that mutual respect is what, you know, the most important thing is to start out a case. And then you're in front of these judges, and if a judge thinks that you're being insincere, if you've been in front of that judge so many times with the same story, trying to, I mean, or being unprepared, like you said, they're not going to take you serious, and you're not going to be persuasive. And so I do think that being sincere is probably one of the best qualities an attorney can have.
Yeah, in my family, there's been a few divorces in our family, so we've gone down that road a few times, and we've had good attorneys and we've had shit attorneys, you know, and I'm not going to say the guy's name because he's a prominent divorce attorney here in Mesa, but all I got to say is, I should put him on blast, but I'm not going to. All I got to say is my dad paid him a lot of money, and he had no clue when he walked into that courtroom.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it happens. I see it every single day.
Yeah.
And yeah, you gotta, you know, I tell people, look, I can't ethically guarantee you what the outcome of your case is going to be. I don't have a crystal ball. The only thing I can guarantee you is that I'm going to work my ass off. And this is what I'm going to do. And I'm telling you this so that you can hold me accountable. And the reason why you pay any professional is because of an information gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but if I'm telling you, look, this is why you're paying me, because you can't do this, then if I'm not following through with what I'm promising you, you know, then I haven't earned your money.
Right.
You know, and we charge a lot. You know, I'm not a public defender, so the people that hire me are not, you know, just tweakers.
Right. I'm sure those cases would get very interesting from time
They
to
do,
time.
and luckily, I mean, I'm not to make light of addiction at all, But yeah, it isn't usually just like the simple drug users that hire private attorneys.
Right.
You know, it's a drug dealer,
Right.
or it's a parent that is concerned for their kid, and so
Yeah.
they're trying to keep them out of trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, and championing what you said there, I'm not making light of addiction, but I've had a lot of tweakers in my life, and I'm at the point with tweakers where it's like, do you want to quit that stuff? We can be cool. But if not, if you act like a silly tweaker, I'm going to mock you for it. Like, I've seen some crazy, I mean...
and they're not fooling anybody.
Yeah, working in Apache Junction, man, like... Yeah, you see him, you know. We'd have me and the guy. What I did was a glazer, driving around, fixing windows, installing glass doors, things like that. We had we called the daily tweaker, you know, and it's like we were always looking for that first strung out person that was just whoa, you know. And
Well, as soon as you cross the border into AJ, it's like you'll see.
That's great. What's
sketch-
crazy though?
It's, like seriously, as soon as you cross either Ellsworth, depending on how far south
it's all
you
Mesa.
are. Well, it is, but once you get to the point, you can tell.
Yeah, but the worst parts of AJ are all in Mesa.
I wouldn't go that far.
Meridian. That's the county line.
I mean, I go to AJ Court,
Right.
and
right.
so
You know.
trust me,
You know.
you spend 10 minutes in the Apache Junction Court and
I'm
10 minutes
sure
in the Mesa Court.
That Apache Junction court's got to be
It's
crazy. It's got to be a
sucks
circus.
to stereotype, but it is
what it is.
entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the people pulling up to court on their bikes with the motors, with the trailer, and it's impressive what they can get running though.
Oh man, I've seen working. There's times where I worked in downtown Mesa, you know, and you see tweakers down there all the time. I've seen tweakers pulling boats with minivans. You know, I've seen. It's been great, man. I've got some pictures on my Instagram where sometimes the world presents you something, and as a comic, I'm like, you kidding me? Like, is this really what's the world is showing me right now? So I'll take a picture of that and put it on Instagram. I've got there's two. They were strung out on something, but in downtown Mesa, and they're both sitting in a wheelchair, and they're going like a mile every 3 hours. I mean, I could have walked backwards faster than these two guys were sitting in this chair, and they're just going down the street.
Oh, you know where my office is on Mesa Drive in Southern.
Yeah.
And there's a Food City next to where our
Yes.
office is. Our building is nice. The area not so nice.
That's a fun area.
Although now there's a skate park that is directly
Right.
across the street, which is pretty amazing.
It's gotta be
But
nice when the
I will
weather's good.
see like somebody riding one of their electric wheelchairs with like 3 kids on their lap. It's pretty incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's
I'm-
going there, and then coming back you have, the 3 kids plus 14
Groceries.
bags of groceries
Oh,
as well.
Wow. I don't even know
Hey,
what
at
to
least
say
they're not.
about
At
that,
least they're
man.
not driving on a suspended license.
Right, exactly. Like, what kind of jerk would do that? Whoever he is, I hope he has a good attorney that can get him out of that crap. So, yeah, I should have known my license was suspended, you know. It went back to when I got in trouble in 2008 in Utah. I had never had a suspended license before. And so I figured when the time was up, it just... it was being naive on my part and not thinking it through. Like, of course, the state's going to make you pay to get that reinstated. Why would they not? It's just revenue.
Yeah, but ignorance is bliss, and people always do that with so many things.
Yeah.
They know there's consequences out there, but if they just don't think about
Yeah.
it, don't try to do anything about it, it's going to go away.
Yeah, obviously you got mine thrown out. You got me taken care of. But how often does that? Listen, this guy just had no idea. Does that ever even work?
Well, it's not a defense. Well, actually,
That's what I mean,
that can be a defense because part of in every type of crime there has to be an element of intent, mens rea, and then an actus reus. And so the act would be driving unsuspended, but you still are supposed to know or should have known that your license was suspended.
Yeah.
And so it's rare that a judge is going to actually buy that defense.
Okay, you seem like a good guy.
But I mean, I've even had a judge in Gilbert, cool guy, cool judge, but my client was driving, saw a cop next to him going a little bit slow, and so he went the speed limit to pass him. Cops don't like that, not surprising. So
I do that all the time. I should
stopped
stop
him for
doing
speeding.
that.
Stopped him for speeding. His license. It turns out his license was suspended. He had no idea. The judge even threw out the speeding because he didn't think that he was even speeding.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't. he wouldn't dismiss the driving suspended. And part of that is because, they mail it to you, and so the judge is going to say, you should be checking your mail. You have an obligation to do that. Plus, driving is a privilege. It's not an absolute right that we have.
True.
But, I mean, there's in more serious cases, that element of not knowing something is an awesome defense. And that is the only time it actually can benefit you to talk to cops.
Yeah.
Is if you say you don't know something. I won a trial recently that I really had no right to winning, but he did, tell the cop that he didn't know that this shotgun was underneath his seat.
Nice.
And that was a funny one because we were sitting there. I mean, we shouldn't have gone to trial. He has priors. If he lost, he's going to prison for at least 4.5 years. They had a plea offer that was really good. So we're literally sitting there picking a jury, and he's trying to tell me how good this case is. And I say, look, man, I said, you are wasting our time right now. Yeah. I said, your offer was good. We should have taken it. We're going to lose. But he was just intent. He's going to trial no matter what. So I said, all right, I'm all in. If you're all in, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And so I found something that I could hang my hat on. And sure enough, we won the trial.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And that's a felony trial. I mean, that's hard to convince, that many people this guy's not guilty because he didn't know this shotgun was
especially when you have priors and things like that.
Exactly. It was a
wow.
It was a fun trial, but I would not recommend
going that route in that situation.
No.
Listen to your attorney, folks. They went to school for a long time, and you're paying them money. So. Yeah, for me, getting my case thrown out with the mail, that kind of makes sense because I was living in Utah. That's where the incident happened that got my license suspended. Then I moved back to Arizona, and that's where I got pulled over. So, but...
if you run a red light,
mm-hmm.
you not only have to pay, if you don't do traffic school, you think you can just send a fine in and it's going to be over with, you actually have to do traffic survival school. A lot of people don't realize that. So they'll send the fine in, or if it's a red light camera, same thing. They'll pay a fine, and then their license is going to get suspended because they didn't do traffic survival school. So that's a common one where somebody that has absolutely no criminal intent, never been in trouble in their life, is all of a sudden driving on a suspended license.
I have a great red light camera picture of me and a buddy. And I wish I still had it, but I'm going through it, and he's yelling at me, and you can see him going, mother. He's yelling at me because it's a red light. And I'm going, I literally look like I'm an idiot. Just, and he's screaming at me.
Those things piss me off because, first of all, the intersections are way too big.
Yeah.
Statistically, the bigger the intersection, more fatalities, but they keep building intersections bigger and bigger because they look nicer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first problem. The second one is the red light cameras, because what's the first thing you do when you see one? Or at least what I do. You either look down or you flip your visor down.
Yeah.
And then you put your head up high enough so you can't see anything going through that intersection.
When I'm wearing a hat, I just kind of lower my head a little bit. It's perfect.
And those are usually if it's not clearly you can usually get that thrown out.
Yeah.
But you don't know unless you try.
It's true. Yeah. True. No, real quick, I don't know how much you can talk about. Obviously, you can't give names or things like that. But what are some of the clients that you represent? Because we've had conversations before, not on the air, where you're like, yeah, man, I've got some interesting folks that I work with.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how some of the results you get as a young lawyer and what type of clients you have shape what your kind of referral source is.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the beginning, I got really good results for some of the local bike club guys.
Nice.
And so I do a lot of the bike club cases.
You've got some very interesting friends.
Yeah, I mean, that's... People always talk about, Cape Fear is a movie that everybody remembers, and De Niro gets out of prison and puts his lawyer down, right? Which is motivating to do a good job, but I feel like if you are a good defense lawyer, you should feel like the exact opposite. Right. You should feel like you have people that have your back, and not people that are going after you.
So when you see bikers pull up behind you in your car, and you're like, hey, man, I've got some interesting folks that I work with. What are some of the clients that you represent? Because we've had conversations before, not on the air, where you're like, yeah, man, I've got some interesting folks that I work with. it's more of like a Lincoln Lawyer scene than like, Cape Fear.
Yeah, except it's harder to collect from those guys.
Yeah.
If they were to pull over and give me a stack of cash, I'd definitely I'd be stoked on that.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of those types of clients. I mean, I don't want to get into too much detail,
Right.
but like I said, it's usually not the people that are just,
People who
doing dope, but
yeah,
and also a lot of professionals, and so we've all represented, or not all, but there's still doctors, there's lawyers that get in trouble,
yeah,
there's nurses, there's other professionals, and that's the other interesting thing, because for one person, getting a DUI, for instance, that can ruin their life.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody else, if all they're looking at is a misdemeanor, which is what a DUI is for the most part, and just doing a day in jail, I mean, that is the best outcome they could ever hope for, right? But for somebody else, that's going to ruin their life. And so in every case, you really have to keep the consequences in perspective. And so, you'll have those clients that are just, we're doing everything we can to avoid a conviction at all.
Mm-hmm.
And other clients that would be happy if they can do 20 years instead of life.
right.
And so, the clients range. Yeah, there's definitely gangsters that need lawyers too. And there's also...
Do you ever get the white collar gangsters where you're like, this guy's done well in his life, started from the bottom, now he's here?
The Walter Whites.
Pardon me, I broke my own rule. Looks like I have an appointment with Kyle Reedy to do a podcast right now. So,
Looks like we're early. The one time I'm early. The Walter Whites, and that is what's interesting, right? Is that I'm meeting just the whole spectrum of people, and that's why I try to avoid any stereotype. It's nice being on this side that I'm getting really paid to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. That's
nice,
one really negative thing about being a prosecutor. Is as much as you would like to give people the benefit of the doubt,
everybody has to be guilty.
And look at the good in people. I mean, you just, at some point, you can't believe anything anybody is saying. You're not giving anybody the benefit of the doubt, because to do that is really to disagree with the officer that thought there was enough there to arrest him. And so at some point, you can look through the facts and find that there's, the standard as a prosecutor is there has to be a reasonable likelihood of conviction. And so there's enough evidence there that lets you support that standard, go forward with it. But it's hard to really go against that. And so, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. At some point, there has to be a come to Jesus moment where it's, look, this is what the facts are. I'm not saying everything in this report is 100% accurate, because it's not. But this is what a jury is going to hear. This is what we're going to be presenting. Now I want you to place yourself in that jury. Are you going to be able to find yourself not guilty? Probably not. So maybe we should take this plea.
Yeah. No, yeah, like back in 2008 when I got arrested that first time, that was when I was really exposed to how the whole thing worked. And they gave me a plea, and my attorney was like, no, we're not going to take this one. We ended up going to court, not going to trial, but going to court over it 4 different times. And finally, at the end, he's like, you're not going to get anything better. I'll just come clean and say what it was all about. I was driving down State Street, got caught with a controlled substance, little marijuana in my car. Not a whole lot, just about 2 ounces. But they were in separate bags, and I had a scale just so I could weigh out what I was going to smoke for that day.
Yeah, you don't want to get ripped off.
Yeah, it's my weed. I'm weighing it out for me. At least that's what I told the. I actually told the officer. He's like, "Why do you have a scale?" I'm like, I'm just thinking like,
Pinewood Derby.
What can I do? So I was like, when you buy it, it's a certain weight, but it dries out over time, and I just wanted to see how much I was going to lose with the water weight. And he's like, "Oh, okay," but. Yeah, man. He took me to an undercover cop station right there off State Street behind Badass Coffee. They handcuffed me into a chair, and the fire department showed up and drew my blood. The fire department was super cool. That cop was a jerk. Were
you being cool to him?
Super cool. I was totally compliant. Totally didn't raise my voice. Was respectful. I told him there wasn't any weed in the car, which was obviously a lie because it smelled like it. So he got mad at me. He's like, "You think this isn't my first rodeo?" I go, "No, dude, but this is mine." I've never been in trouble before.
Right.
And I go, am I going to jail? He's like, yeah, you can't have weed in this state. I'm like, oh, God. But so he cranks these handcuffs down on me. And I'm like, hey, man, these are real tight. Like, is there any way you could just loosen even my right arm just up a notch? Like, I'm totally cooperating. And he's like, no, man, I can't. So he puts me in the back of the car. You know how they're wearing those microphones? His backup showed up, and this kid was like, what's the youngest age you can be a cop? 21?
I haven't seen a cop younger than 21.
Okay, this guy was 21 in 2 months. Just green, wet behind the ears. And I didn't get pissed off until I started hearing him talk. And he's like, well, should I give him a DUI? And the young kid's like, well, I would. He's like, fine then. And I was just like, you assholes. This is only my life you're talking about, and I can hear every word you're saying. Yeah, I just kind of shut up, went to the adult detention center, or the adult daycare, the ADC as they call it in Salt Lake affectionately. And when those big bay doors open and you drive in and they shut, I'm just like, oh, shit.
So did you have to wait, see a judge, set bond or something? Or
No, what happened was they took me into the holding room where you're handcuffed to the bar behind you and you're all kind of sitting there. And
the drunk tank?
Nah, because this is just like a holding area. Like, there was drunk people in there, but there was people that were totally sober. There's a pregnant woman in there. I felt bad for her. She got caught with a pack of zigzags. I was just like, oh, that sucks, man. Like,
That's just what she told you.
yeah, that's true. That's true. It could have been, yeah. Probably what was underneath that pack of zigzags that really got her in trouble.
Exactly.
But yeah, they processed me in. They took me from there and they put me in another holding cell. But this one, like, you walked in and these cells were like 10 feet in the ground. And that's where you just sat there until you either bailed out or you were dressed in. So...
Time just stands still, huh?
Oh, yeah. And I gave them good numbers for people that I knew in Utah. But the problem is I had a speeding ticket from 2003, 5 years previous, where I'm like, I'm never going to be in Utah again. Screw this. Didn't pay it. Had forgotten about it. And that's why the guy was pissed at me, like... He was like, yeah, he's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm nervous. And he's like, well, you were nervous about that speeding ticket from 2003?
So was your license suspended?
No. I had a bench warrant out. It was 5 years old. And,
So for people out there,
yeah.
A DUI in Arizona is a misdemeanor unless there's a few different circumstances. If it is your third one in 84 months, that is a felony. If your license is suspended, it's a felony. If you don't have the interlock installed when you're supposed to, that is a felony. Or if you're driving with somebody that's 15 or under in your car and you get a DUI, that's a felony. And so in your particular situation, had you been in Arizona, been driving on a suspended license, and then got that DUI, they could potentially file that as a felony.
Wow. Well, they wanted to give me a felony. They gave me, possession with intent to distribute. They gave me, it was like a class 3 felon or class. What are the classes?
I think they do A, B, C, D
yeah.
in Utah.
And then your misdemeanors are 1, 2, 3. 3 is severe, 1 is light. But yeah, it was like a class B felony that he pled down to a class 2 or 3 misdemeanor. So I was happy with my attorney up there. But yeah, so they put me in this waiting area, and the phone number I had given them that I had was my cell phone, which is a 480 area code, and my license plate in Utah was an Arizona license plate. And so they're like, no, dude, we're not letting you out. Like, you have this bench warrant from 2003, you are a fly-by-nighter, you probably don't even live here in Utah, you're staying here. And so what they do is in Utah, the courts are so overcrowded with addicts. They have a crazy, for a small number of people that live in Utah, there's a lot of addiction going on there. It's pretty sad, but they're so overcrowded that they give you 72 hours to file your papers, and if they don't file your stuff, then they let you out. And it's called a fail to file. Well, my fail to file...
Here they call it, your case gets scratched.
Okay. I went in on a Friday. So my 72 hours was Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. And I'm like, well, if they're just going to let me out, don't bail me out, I'll be fine. But they didn't let me out. And finally, my parents bailed me out. But going back to being arrested, when I asked them to loosen up the cuffs, my arm started to get like sore and like tight inside jail, and it got to the point where it was changing color, and I was like, something's wrong, it's super tight, starting to turn a little reddish purple. So I went, and the first CO I had there for the first 2 days, this guy was an asshole, and I'm not talking trash about COs in general because I know they have a very difficult job, but this guy was just, there was a fight that almost broke out because of this guy, and they actually moved him out and they brought in this woman who was a 40-year-old veteran, or a 40-year veteran, in the Utah correctional industry, whatever it is. And she was like, hey guys, all that silence, all that shh, you don't tell people to shh. I do. That's my job. If you guys are quiet, I know you're up to something, so I want to hear a little noise. She was super cool. There was this one guy in there, I think his name was David Hernandez, and he'd been in and out of the system his whole life. He's one of those guys that's walking around like, hey man, what's up, where you been, and he's totally institutionalized, but really nice guy. He was in there because he was in a car, and the driver stabbed him, so he stabbed the driver back, and the car went through an intersection to hit a streetlight. And so he's like, I don't know if they're going to charge me for self-defense or murder or manslaughter, but something's coming. He walked up to her at one point and said something, and she laughed and gave him the hand wave, get out of here. And then as he was about 20 or 30 feet away, she goes, David, where you been? I've almost raised you, and you come up here asking me a question like that. Where you been? And so I knew I could talk to this woman. I went to talk to the former CEO about something, and dude, I've never been arrested before, man. I've never been in trouble. I go up there, I go, hey, man. And he goes, what'd you call me? I go, bro, I'm sorry. He goes, what'd you call me? And I go, what do you want me to call you? He's like, you call me officer or sir? He's like, no, what do you want? I go, nothing, officer. I'm fine. You. I'm fine. Went back to my cell. She was cool enough to where I felt comfortable going to talk to her. And I'm like, hey, my arm's messed. And she's looking at it. And so she calls the triage nurse. There was a few other people that they were seeing. Side story that's kind of funny. When I first moved to Utah, I was working for a company called Advanced MD, and their medical billing software. They're kind of like the Rolls-Royce of medical billing software. And there was a girl I worked with there, Steelers fan. I'm a Cardinals fan. Little friction there, but we were buddies, so it was cool. And she had this picture of her brother on her desk, who I was like, and I'd be like,
so how long were you in at this point?
This is my fifth day. This is my fifth day when I get the triage nurse. But I see this officer standing there, and I recognize him from the picture on her desk. And so I'm like, I'm better at it this time. So I'm like, Officer Howard, can I have a word? He's like, yeah. And I go, hey, do you have a sister named Jessica? And he's like, swells up on me, all 5'3" of him, super imposing, swells up on me, and I'm like, dude, I used to work with her. She had a picture of you on her desk. I recognize you. She told me you used to work here. And he was like, okay. We started talking for a while. He kind of relaxed. After a while, he goes, what are you doing in here, dude?
Yeah, that's the thing. They don't give anybody enough time to really think about their individual circumstances, right?
Yeah.
You can be as respectful as you could possibly be, but until you have that breakthrough moment, which is just pure coincidence.
Yeah, and after that, he was totally cool. He was like, all right, well, that'll happen, it's illegal here. Back then, it was illegal everywhere. It was 2008. But
what if he realized that everybody in there, had some connection, knew somebody, had a life outside of jail, made a mistake or not?
Yeah.
Everybody's life would be, his included, would be so much easier.
Dude, they took me to the ER, Kyle, and they handcuffed my wrists together to my waist, and they had the thing going down with my feet handcuffed together. My hair was down to my shoulders, and I had a beard. I felt like Sean Connery walking out of The Rock.
I was going to say you felt like Jesus.
Oh, no. I could have felt like Jesus. When they walked me into the ER for my arm, they took me right past the daycare. So, all the little kids are like, who's that scary guy? I felt like a piece of crap, though, walking in front of all those kids and those scared faces. And then I actually got released from the ER. my bond posted, or my bail posted, and
What a nightmare. So that's the worst part of your case.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
and for years I had health problems because of it. I was on Lovenox.
So did you ever figure out what the problem was?
Yeah,
Just cut circulation
blood
off?
clot, straight up deep vein thrombosis. I called Dr. Jimmy Gunn, who was in med school at the time. I'm like, this is what's happening, and he's like, they should have taken care of this in the ER, and I'm like, well, they didn't. And
Yeah,
he was like, go to the ER now. Like, I'm not getting off the phone with you. Why are you still here? So I'm like, I'm turning into the ER. Okay, can I hang up now? Okay, yeah, you can hang up now. But
If I had $1 for every time somebody called my office to sue the cops because of how they treated him when they got arrested, I wouldn't be here right now. I mean,
yeah,
it's incredible how many people get serious injuries.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe they deserve it a little bit, but for the most part, I mean, they're brutal.
When I talked to my attorney about it, he's like, dude, just let it go.
I know people get so hung up on it.
He's
I'm
like,
like,
you do
look,
not
if
wanna
this
go to war
if
with
that
Salt
was
Lake.
going to get your case dismissed, we're going to pursue that.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, the reason why you got arrested happened before that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he was just like, just let it go.
Yeah.
But I've had people that have been like, dude, you should have sued. I'm like, no, dude. Like, you have to, like, something, Rodney King had a good case against the cops. Jesse Smith did not, you know?
No, you don't.
But, yeah, man, I was on Lovenox for 2 months, giving myself shots in the stomach twice a day. And then I was on Coumadin for about 2 years. Now I just take aspirin. But, yeah, man, do you have to go? Or are you getting close to that time?
Sorry.
Okay. But, yeah, man, it was horrible.
Yeah, that is gnarly.
Yeah. So even now, like, if I don't take my aspirin, it's probably all in my head, but if I don't take my aspirin for a couple days, or if, like, I'm laying back and someone's laying on my arm, I know it's not happening, but that same tension, that feeling of tension happens, and I'm like, I gotta move my arm. You know, like, I'm in danger. My life's in danger. You know, like, it messes with me on that arm. You know.
Well, we're glad you got out of jail, Jesse.
Thank you. So am I. I didn't belong in there. Everybody was real cool though. It was in quarantine, so I was in my cell for 21 hours a day, and they're like, "It's your first time, huh?" And I'd be like, "Yeah," and they're like, "You'll be all right, dude."
Yeah, I mean, it's as bad as it sucks to have to go through that experience. It is an experience. It's you when somebody tells you now that they've been arrested, or you're reading something that talks about somebody that's been processed. I mean, you can put yourself in their shoes and know what it's like. And I can actually say the same thing.
Yeah, nice, dude, nice.
Not for anything like that,
Sorry.
but I can understand how shitty it is to be arrested, to be booked, and see how those people treat you. And that's why they're really, like, you could see in that guy's eyes this moment where it just clicked, like, oh wait, this dude might actually be normal. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a whole posture, whole body language, whole tone of voice. It was just like he went from being like that stern, chin down, to just kind of standing upright, looking at me, and then he kind of sagged his shoulders and goes, "What are you doing in here, dude?"
Yeah, I try to convince prosecutors to look at my clients the same way.
Yeah.
I'll be like, look, I know everybody comes in here and says their clients are innocent, they didn't do anything, they're normal. I'll say, but look, this time I'm not even going to say they're innocent, but I'm going to say this person is totally normal. This was an aberration. They just made a mistake.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's what we're doing, is just, let the punishment fit the crime.
The craziest thing for me about that process was realizing that I am a prisoner.
Absolutely.
Like, I was dressed out in, what do we have? We were wearing red jumpsuits, I think. I had my duffel bag and my pillow and my pad under my arm. Like, going down the hall, stop, put your stuff on your right, put your hands on the wall, spread your legs. And I just remember thinking in that moment, if I disobey any of these commands, orders, people are yelling at me, if I even get flippant or lippy for a second, these guys are going to kick my ass.
Yeah, when you have no freedom, but also when you don't know what your rights are. Because when you first got arrested, they're telling you 72 hours. You don't know is it really 72 hours? Can they keep me here for a month, for 2 months? How long am I going to actually be in here for?
Yeah.
And so to not even know the process, I mean, the fear of the unknown is really what
Well, there's
scares
so
people
many
the most
different
when they get
stages
arrested.
too. Like, you don't know how you're going to be in this holding pen. You don't know how long you're going to be in this cell. Like, they put me in a cell that was literally 10 feet by 5
and
feet.
time just stands still.
15 dudes in there, and like 4 of them were dope sick, and there's a bathroom in there, and there's a toilet in there, so they're like, sorry guys, I'm dope sick.
Yeah, and they wonder why people plead guilty so quick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in Arizona, Maricopa County, jail is so bad, people are just chomping at the bit to take pleas so they can go off to prison. They'd rather be in DOC prison than in county jail.
Yeah.
Because it's just so bad.
Yeah. Is it, no, I've heard something about the tent city. Are they doing away with that? Is that what I've heard?
Yeah, they are doing away with it. I've had clients that have had to self-surrender, which they used to just would have gone to tent city and been there for work release. Now they're, for the most part, keeping them inside, normal jail cell. Still getting out like normal work release would be, but they are phasing out tent city.
From a professional standpoint, what are some of your thoughts on that? Both the existence of it and the phasing out.
It's funny because if I were to get arrested and have to do work release, which is, people that are in tent city are people that have been sentenced. So they're either, there's a difference between prison and jail. A lot of people don't know. Jail is somewhere you wait if you can't get bonded out or there's no release conditions, so you have not been sentenced yet. So there's people that have been in jail for 5 years for that, waiting for their case to go to trial or whatever. So there's those people. They are not going to be in tent city. The people that would be in tent city are people who have been sentenced, and you can serve up to 12 months in jail as a term of probation. So if you don't get probation, you go to prison. If you get probation but they want you to do jail time, you go to something like tent city. So if that was me, I would rather be in a tent, I think, than in a cell.
I
and you talk to people, but they're like, yeah, but not if it's
110
degrees outside, or not if it's 35 degrees at night. And so, I've heard it both ways. I think people feel like they have more freedom when they're in tent city. Doesn't feel so much like they're in jail.
That was driving to the hospital at the University of Utah.
Yeah.
From West Valley was just like, oh, the mountains look so pretty.
People have no idea how much we take our freedom for granted.
Oh, dude, the mountains looked beautiful.
Idea.
The sky looked amazing. Like it was just a clear day.
And it sucks to have vibrant. And it sucks that you had to get arrested to appreciate that freedom. But hopefully you haven't forgotten that.
No.
Any time that you've ever had, you have a health scare, you realize that you take your health for granted.
Mm-hmm.
If we could just really package that up and remember, man, we should not take our health, our freedom, these things for granted. And it sucks that something bad has to happen.
Yeah.
We get taken away before we do that.
The biggest takeaway from that whole situation, how to communicate with police. Especially with that when that CO went off on me. It was like, now when I talk to a cop, it's like, yes, officer, no, officer. I'll stay in my vehicle if you'd like me to, sir. I'm not going to get out and get excited and talk to you. Like, people just don't know how to deal with police officers.
Well, I don't want to give away why I think that I'm a successful defense attorney, but part of it is being passive aggressive.
Yeah.
And that's what you had to do when you dealing with cops, dealing with correction officers, dealing with prosecutors. We have to be passive aggressive.
Yeah.
And a part of that is, you have to have genuine respect, like we talked about. But at the end of the day, you can't demand anything.
Right. Yeah, cops have such an insanely demanding job, and there's so much stress, and it almost helps them out in their job if they default to the negative, because it keeps them sharper. And so I get it, but like, I guess where I'm going with this is, what are your suggestions if someone finds himself getting pulled over and they know they're probably going to get in trouble? From that moment on, what are your suggestions? I know when you pass out your business cards, you have some things that you suggest too.
Yeah, and it's different if you are taught to never talk, to ever talk. And the reason is because the rules of evidence are there's hearsay, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't bring in statements that you don't say yourself. Somebody else says it. But the other thing people don't realize is that everything you say that helps you, that is exculpatory, is inadmissible. That cannot be used in court. So a cop can tell a jury everything you said that was inculpatory. So if you said, yeah, I did smoke marijuana, but the next sentence you said 2 years ago, then they're going to say, yeah, and then he admitted to smoking marijuana, not the part did 2 years ago. And so when you're giving people advice, it's like you want to tell them don't say anything. But the reality of it is cops don't like that.
Right.
They're immediately going to go into an investigatory mode. They're going to put on their blinders, and they're going to look for a reason to arrest you or to make your life more difficult. And so what I say is what we've kind of just talked about. You got to be respectful. You can't all of a sudden, you can't just immediately start blaming whatever, if it's stopped for speeding, if it's whatever it is. You can't start blaming. You can't play the blame game. Cops hate that. So, but you got to be respectful. And then if you know you absolutely have not, let's say it's a DUI, been drinking, you don't do any drugs, just say straight up, look, I don't drink, I haven't drank today, I don't take any drugs, I'm totally fine. Go ahead and say that, right? They could then say, well, but why are your eyes a little bit bloodshot? Why are your eyes watery? Well, it's because you have allergies, but if he's already made the decision he's going to arrest you for a DUI, then he's going to go down that path.
Right.
So I'd like to say don't ever talk, but the reality of it is cops don't let you do that. Mm-hmm. But what I would say is absolutely do not say something that is, never just a consent to a search of your car.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what is in your car. You might think you do, but what if you had, what if you had a roach that was under your seat that you didn't know about from years ago? Yeah, or something is in your wallet from years ago. And so once you give up rights, you're not getting those rights back. Right. And so even if somebody that knows they're going to get in trouble or knows they have something in their car, you do not give up any of those rights. So you never consent to a search. You never talk. You just, you give them your license, or if you don't have a license and your license is suspended, don't tell them, I don't have my license because it's suspended. You don't say that, you know?
I've been searched by canines twice. Dirty both times. And got away with it twice.
Yeah, and then you'll hear the people that really should not have been busted. Yeah. But the cop is intense, so they give a little cue for that canine to give indication that there's something there. Yeah. And then, I've had them actually search somebody, outside the car. And they say they scratch on the driver's side door. So they pull them out, they arrest them, they search the car. They don't even find anything in the driver's door, but they find something in the trunk that is... Yeah. There's no way it would ever have been detected.
Yeah. My situation was crazy. I was working for the Collective with a K in Salt Lake. And I decided to go do the summer program with... It was called APX at the time. Now it's Vivint Alarm Systems. And so I was going out to Chicago, but stopping off in Minnesota for a couple weeks before that. And I brought weed with me. I had a nice big bag in my console. I had a slightly larger bag in my back with a volcano vaporizer and a couple pipes and some grinders. Not my best work traveling and concealing it. I was just kind of threw everything in the back of my Tahoe and took off. I was going through Nebraska. And I'm interested in your commentary on this to see what I did right, what I did wrong, and where it would have unraveled if I'd done anything different. But I was behind a car, I was going a little slow, and the left lane was open. So I went to pull out into the left lane and saw about 100 yards up the road, it was a construction zone. So I moved back in, and then I saw the cop behind me. And so he turns his lights on, and I'm like, crap. So here in Arizona, what they'll do is a lot of times instead of pulling off on the side of a freeway, you'll kind of go in the off-ramp, or you'll turn off onto the main street and go into like a parking lot or something. The idea is to make it more safe for the officer when he's getting out of his vehicle. They do not like that in Nebraska. They think that you are running away. So
they don't like it here either. Just for
really?
Future information.
Okay, yeah, I won't do it anymore then. But he was pissed. Comes up to me and he's like, your car smells like marijuana. And I'm like, and he's like, well, can I look around your vehicle? Because I had my windows rolled down because I was trying to air it out. I had just smoked like maybe a half an hour before that in my car. And
you're asking about things you did right and wrong?
Super wrong. And I know, super wrong. Yeah, and that's an obviously glaring one. That was a long trip, man. It was like a 24-hour trip. I was bored.
It doesn't take a lawyer to tell you that.
No, I should have pulled over on the side of the road and done it if I needed to do it. But so I'm like, he actually had me get out of the vehicle, so I'm walking with him, and he's like, "Can I search your vehicle?" And I was like, "Man, I'm going to the summer program. I got somewhere I got to be. Like, I don't have time for you to take my vehicle apart for the next 6 hours. You know, I've got to get to Minnesota, and I got to be to work tomorrow." And he's like, "I'm like, you can look in the windows if you want to, you know." And I actually popped open my Tahoe, the back of my Tahoe, and like I opened one bag and look, these are clothes. Look, these are books, you know. And I'm like, other than that, like I got someplace to be.
Right.
And he's like, "All right, well, okay." And so he let me go. And a mile down the road, I get pulled over by a canine unit. You know, and this time I just pulled over on the side of the road because he actually sat me in his no. Yeah. I pulled over on the side of the road, and this guy gets out and he goes, "Yeah, you're going a little fast there, so, you know, wanted to, out-of-state license plate, just wanted to kind of check you out." I'm like, "Okay, I know what's going on here." So he brings me and he sits me in the front seat of his cop car. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know. And, tracking back, I'm super nervous and I'm scared. So when I get out, I kind of adjust my pants,
Yeah,
you know,
you're
the front.
high.
Well, yeah, and I'm sweating, you know, and I'm just. This is the same year I got arrested already, you know, so I'm super nervous around cops at this time of my life.
So those 5 days in jail didn't scare you straight?
No, not at all. You know, it made me better. It made me, well, I guess in this moment it didn't really. It didn't. In the long run, it did. Okay. I learned a lot from the long run. But so he sits me in the front seat of his car. Well, first I adjust my pants, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa," and his hand's on his gun. I'm like, "Dude, I've been driving for 5 hours. I'm just getting comfortable, you know." So he's on high alert, sits me down in the front seat, and he's like, "Okay, your car smells like marijuana. I'm going to have my dog go ahead and walk around." He's like, "Can my dog search your car?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to have my dog walk around. All the windows are open." He walked that dog around 5 times. And this dog's stepping up on my tires, going, you know, like sniffing around.
Well, to that officer's credit, I mean, they typically can nudge the dog to make it scratch. So
yeah, he was being cool. He came back and said, "Okay, my dog didn't hit anything, but your vehicle smells like marijuana. Why?" I'm like, "I don't know." He's like, "No, dude." Like he was like pressing me pretty hard. And I was like, "Listen, man, I work for a concert promoter. I have between 15 and 20 strangers in my vehicle any given week. I also loan my vehicle out to between 3 and 5 people any given day, or, you know." I said, "There's a chance that someone may have smoked marijuana in my car at some point. But I didn't know about it. I wasn't present, and it wasn't me." And he just sat there for a second and goes, "You need to be more careful about who you lend your vehicle to. Get out of here." And I was just like, "Are you serious? Like, what? I'm gone. I'm free?" You know, like I didn't say it, but that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I drove 3 miles, pulled over into a parking lot, and took a nap for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know?
You had the munchies. You had to eat too.
Oh yeah, man! It was, you know, I was relieved.
It's nice. It's refreshing to hear those stories because when somebody's in my office, they didn't catch a break like that.
Yeah.
And so I rarely do I hear about officers giving people breaks. I know what happens, but you know, not when they're in my office.
Yeah.
You definitely caught a huge break.
Oh yeah, totally. Now the second time I was in Salt Lake, just got my first iPod. You know, that dates this a little bit. And I'd spent all day allegedly downloading illegal music and cleaning up the titles, the names of the songs, you know, and the names of the CDs, and just getting my iTunes
LimeWire.
LimeWire was beautiful. Getting my iPod just dialed in. And I was like, all right, well, I'm hungry. I'm going to go around to the Taco Bell. It's like 11:30 at night, or maybe 11 at night. Pretty late.
I'm surprised it took that long. iPod had like 250 megs.
Oh yeah. No, that was one of those little nano ones. It was like a gig.
To get along to upload 25
the ones
songs.
Just the little Oh, it was Well, my
you
internet.
spent all your time figuring out which 25 songs you're going to choose from your library.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, the time was spent like correcting the song titles, so it wasn't like recipe for 0000000 AAA recipe for hate. You know, like it was just recipe for hate. You know. So I go to this Taco Bell, and it's right next to a Sportsman's Warehouse. And it's on 80th Avenue and State Street, this area in Salt Lake. And so I'm in the Taco Bell, just getting my burritos, not thinking of anything. I get back on the street, and I'm going down the road, and I see not 1, 2, 3, 4, but 5 cop cars behind me. And I'm right at a green light, and all of them turn their lights on. And so I just turn right, stop maybe 10 feet down the road. And I'm sitting there, and they pull up, and they're like, hey, we got a call from Sportsman's Warehouse. Their security footage said that you were casing the place. No, man, I was getting Taco Bell. And he looks at me, and I go, and hold up my Taco Bell like, dude. And I conveniently set the Taco Bell on top of my console where my bag of weed was. Right? And he's like, well, do you mind if I have my dog look around? And I'm like, sure. Go ahead. As he walks back.
Maybe both of these instances you got ripped off and you just had some dirt weed. Wasn't
No, it was loud.
I'm thinking you were smoking oregano.
No, it was loud. It was good stuff, man. Like I had a great connection in Salt Lake, like there's good weed up there, man. The snowboarders up there, they don't like the bad stuff, man. Like Olympic athletes are training in Park City, man.
We're giving too much credit to these.
It was weird. It was weird. So he goes back to get the dog, and I pull my attorney's card out of my wallet, and I have that in my hoodie with my cell phone, because I was going to be like, listen, because my attorney was a prosecutor. And he's like, listen, dude, if you get popped for anything, give the cop my card. He may know me. You're still going to be in trouble, but he may not take you in.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, so that's my plan. And they walk around it twice, and he comes back. He's like, well, my dog almost ate your Taco Bell. And what had happened, the dog had hit on the Taco Bell.
Right.
And he thought it was hungry for the food. And so at that point, I realized what was happening, and I felt a little confident. So I go, well, is the Midvale Police Department going to reimburse me for my Taco Bell that your dog ate? And they're like, ha 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 ha. No, he didn't eat it. Ha ha. And they let me go. Well, yeah, and it was just, I couldn't believe it, man. It was just like, I get back, then I told my roommate, I'm like, dude, I almost got arrested just now. And he's like, what? Like, what happened?
Yeah, that happens so much too when people are just going to run to the store. It's amazing how many people really get DUIs while they're driving to the store to get more beer.
Yeah, I believe
and then
it.
and they'll tell the cops, I was just driving to the store to get more beer. But
Man.
one thing I learned as a prosecutor is that, two things. Never go to Circle K, because only bad things happen at Circle K.
Yeah.
And never go to Arizona Mills, because only bad things happen at
Yeah.
Arizona Mills. So if you're in Arizona, I would avoid those two places.
Oh, for sure, man. Especially during Christmas time. Your car is going to get stolen.
Stolen, there's human trafficking, drug trafficking, still get your car stolen, yeah. And then Circle K, you can't even begin to talk about what goes down at those places.
Wow, dude. Circle K, huh?
Absolutely.
I've got a friend I do jiu-jitsu with that works at Circle K.
He's shady then.
No, he's in the office. He's not in the actual stores. But I'm going to start
that's
giving him crap. But, yeah, man. Human trafficking at Arizona Mills.
Yeah, that's just such a thoroughfare to Mexico.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
and it's close to the airport.
Once you get on the 10, there's all kinds of
Yeah.
routes into Mexico.
So be careful.
Yeah. That's crazy. Huh. If there's that much crime going on there, that makes me not want to even go there at all.
Well, now, if you drive by, you can see they have those surveillance cameras,
Okay.
all over the parking lot, mobile units as well, not just the normal ones, but they have surveillance there. They have the cops patrolling all the time.
So they got that place locked down now.
Yeah, but stuff still goes down.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I have a case that right now, something went down at one of the shady motels that's right across the street too.
Yeah.
Just because they deal so much dope out of that area.
Yeah.
That, even the surrounding areas are shady too.
Wow.
So be careful.
Yeah, I was just buying shoes there a couple months ago. Like, no idea the place was that hot. That's crazy. Yeah, so canines, German Shepherds scare me.
Yes.
after these experiences, even though they were positive experiences for the most part. But I understand that I got lucky there.
Yeah, you did.
So
twice.
Yeah. So, but I'm glad the laws have changed. things
They have, and they haven't too. I mean, it's still, if you have your medical marijuana card, for the most part, it is. I say there's two get out of jail free cards. One is my business card, and the other one's the medical marijuana card. But even then, it's important that if you get pulled over, you don't admit to smoking. You know, yes, you can use that card nowadays. Before, you could have a card, and there's almost always going to be 2 counts of DUI that you get. One is that you're impaired. So even somebody with alcohol that's below a .08, if they have some alcohol in their system, they can still try to prove that they're impaired. And so there's that charge. So they used to give you that for the DUI, but then also a separate charge, which is that you're driving and you have THC or its metabolite in your system.
Right.
And so while they would not be able to prove that you were impaired, they could easily prove that you had THC in your system.
Yeah.
If it had been Xanax and you had a prescription, you could use that as a defense, but you cannot use your card. Nowadays, you can use your card at least as a defense, but they can still try to show that you are impaired, and then getting your card into evidence is a whole nother issue. And so even though you are technically allowed to smoke or ingest and drive, you're going to make your life a lot easier if you do not admit to doing either of those things to cops.
Yeah. We were talking earlier about a case that I had referred to you. I don't give Kyle a lot of business from myself these days, but I do have a lot of friends I send his way. And I had a buddy that he was sitting at an on-ramp, or not an on-ramp, he was sitting on a street to get on an on-ramp to the 60 in Tempe, and a cop rear-ended him. And
no fault of the drivers. They were literally sitting at a stoplight.
Yeah.
They'd been out that night, so it was midnight or so.
Yeah, he had a beer, like one.
And this time for real.
Yeah, like one beer, The guy's like me. He'd rather smoke than drink. But they try to throw him in the drunk tank.
Well, the problem is that the officer, it's hard for officers to ever be wrong. So they were in this guy. They smell alcohol because all his passengers have been partying.
Yeah.
And so he put those DUI blinders on. And so he was convinced that this kid was going to get a DUI. Once he blew into there's different breathalyzers. We don't have to get into that. But he blew into it, and it showed that, he was definitely not even close to a .08. So then they go down this path of, well, there's got to be something else in your system.
And they saw his card in his wallet.
Yes.
And pulled it out, and that's what they tried to get him for.
So they still gave him, even though he got rear-ended by a cop, he got charged with DUI for having that THC in his system. And at the time, you could not use your card as a defense. But, at the end of the day, we got that case resolved. He did not get a DUI.
Mm-hmm.
But it took a lot of convincing to convince the prosecutor to really drop that case.
Yeah. That was a crazy... That was one of the first times that I'd really seen police overstep their bounds with someone that I knew, and it wasn't a gross overuse of power.
Like with you broke the law.
Yeah, absolutely.
You did something
I was
wrong.
totally in the wrong.
You understood it. You didn't enjoy the process, but you knew that was the process.
Yeah, and I knew I had landed myself there.
Exactly.
This
So
guy
to
was being responsible.
To be wrongfully accused is, really that's what drives the legal profession to represent people that are guilty, because you don't know, and you still have to hold the state, the government, to that burden.
Yeah.
But when you are absolutely not guilty and you get arrested, that's a different ballgame.
Yeah, no, I met up with him at a house, and he was just kind of complaining about it, and I was like, what? I'm like, do you have an attorney?
Well, no, and that's the thing. They were trying to get it. He was about to take a plea to a DUI with some other attorney. I said, no.
Yeah, I was like, dude, call my boy. Just call him.
At the end of the day, let's go sit in trial and let the jury hear that a cop rear-ended you, but you were the one that was in the wrong because you had, weed
trace
in your
amounts of THC, yeah.
Yeah, that's frustrating. It's cases like that are the most rewarding to handle, but also the most stressful. I try to be the type of lawyer that I would hire to represent myself or my family member, but that also means that I take a lot of this emotionally home at night, and I stress about it, internalize it. And I think that's what you have to do to be a good lawyer, but it is stressful.
That's got to be a whole new level of stress, work stress, when you have one person that's like, they're guilty, but they're not a bad person, and it's like, well, if I can't get them off, at least I know they did it. Compared to someone where they're totally innocent, and this could mess up their life if it goes through. That's got to be a whole new level of stress.
Those are the worst cases to handle. But the only way that you can still sleep at night and be okay with it is to do everything in your power. I'm not a magician, but if I do everything in my power, I can sleep at night.
Yeah.
And usually the result is an indication that I've done everything that I can, but at the end of the day, it's not my call.
Right. Now, just to our listeners real quick, if you are looking for a magician, in a few weeks we will have Chris Magic on, and he is a magician at Rawhide, and he's got some great videos on YouTube and stuff. But if you need a good attorney, Kyle is definitely your man. So, do you have anything you want to plug or anything before we wrap this up? Or
no plugs. I mean, a lot of times people are reluctant to even have a consultation with an attorney because they think it's going to cost them. We don't charge for consultations. And a lot of time, and this goes back to being sincere, if somebody's in my office, I will tell them, look, you can pay me $1 million or you can go into court on your own. This is what the result is going to be, And so, and if that's what happens, you've just saved yourself some money. And so, if you know anybody that's been in trouble, don't be reluctant, because that's it's peace of mind. Mm. And so if we can help you out, we will. If not, we'll let you know.
And what's your website?
So SkousenReedy.com. The Skousens have been in town for a long time.
Yeah, those are some heavy hitters.
Yeah, so we do all the criminal defense work that comes through the firm. Also, we do personal injury cases. My focus has always been on criminal defense.
Yeah.
With the prosecution background, skate background.
There you go.
And so that's what I do. But any questions, give me a call, or need an attorney for anything else, we'll try to refer out.
Excellent.
So
right on. Well, thank you for making time for me today, man. I know you got some busy plans ahead of you.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It's been great, man. This was a great podcast. We're signing off Planet Earth. Again, listen to this a couple times. Kyle drops a lot of good wisdom here, and learn a few things, and above all, be excellent to each other.